In today's video, let's talk about how I've got a little bit of deja vu because Windows is here for the Steam Machine, but you probably shouldn't install it just yet. After that, let's talk about the very simple fix for the red bar of death. And finally, it looks like the Steam Frame is launching pretty soon. How's it going? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I was holding my hand like I was going to point at you. Oh, I am. I hope you're having a great week playing a ton of video games. I'm playing State of Decay 2, loving it. Medium settings, 30 FPS, runs great on the Steam Deck. Also playing Silent Hill 2. That PC port sucks. I just need to say it. Absolutely abysmal garbage in terms of performance, but it speaks to how good the game is because I'm suffering through it. Let me know what you're playing down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, set your notifications to all, but with the intro out of the way, let's talk about Windows on the Steam Machine. And again, I have deja vu. I've been doing this so long that I can distinctly remember doing videos back before the Steam Deck came out when I was overweight and had a bad haircut. Now I just have a bad haircut. But back then, Valve silently released the drivers for Windows on the Steam Deck and said, yep, eventually we want to get a dual boot wizard that will help you partition your SSD, set it up so you can launch into Windows or launch into SteamOS if you got some multiplayer games. They said when SteamOS is finished, we will release that. We're working on it. And that's exactly what's happening with the Steam Machine now, because Valve, just like with the Steam Deck, has released the exact drivers you need for things like the micro SD card, the Wi-Fi card, the audio, and every other boutique driver you need to install Windows on the Steam Machine. But they say that there's a big caveat, which is if you want to run Windows officially, you have to wipe the Steam Machine and use it as your only operating system, which generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend for a lot of reasons. First of all, there's no actual support coming from Valve, so you'll just be using the generic drivers from AMD for the GPU, which, you know, isn't the strongest GPU in the world. I mean, even on its best day. So like not getting that custom tuned boutique driver support from Valve probably isn't the best way to go with this thing because, you know, it's not necessarily the strongest one in the world. Same thing goes for the CPU. You'd be relying on AMD. And also, I mean, even in its absolute best case scenario, while Windows Xbox mode has come a long way and it probably will work just fine on the Steam Machine, it's not even in the same league as SteamOS just yet. I like it. I want to see it improve. I hope they continue to work on it with their resituated plans for the Xbox platform going into the next generation, because it seems like they might be doing a console now instead of a just pre-built PC running this Windows Xbox mode, whatever. Regardless, right now where it's at, not the best case scenario. And like, if you're buying one of these things to use Game Pass with, you should either just wait for the Xbox Helix and see if it's a pre-built gaming PC, or take advantage of all these deals that are going on right now, because while RAM and storage prices are definitely through the roof, you probably have either a couple sticks of RAM that you can cannibalize from an old PC, or at the very least an SSD sitting in your PS5 which you're not using in protest because Sony killed physical discs, that you can then transfer into a pre-built or build your own custom PC for Xbox mode and Game Pass. Like, I know people like Game Pass. It's probably going to get pretty cut down at the knees in the near future, but I just don't use it. I paid for it for a little bit. I was able to get some codes for it from Xbox, and with all the different various PCs and Xbox accessories I bought over the years, I just don't like subscription services. I never have. I just prefer buying my games, so it's not really a big deal to me. And if I'm being real, whenever Valve considers SteamOS done enough to actually make this dual boot wizard that they've been promising for over 4.5 years now, they just stopped talking about it for a few years, and now it's obviously back because they released the specific drivers for Windows. I'm not going to do it. Even though I have the 2TB, I just don't really care. I have a decent enough Windows PC sitting on my desk right there. I hung on to my Razer Blade laptop because I just want to have it around in case, you know, I have issues with my desktop or something like that, and I use it for Blender. I have options of PCs that get actual driver support that can play multiplayer games on Windows if I ever really need to. But right now, the vast majority of what I play multiplayer wise works just fine on SteamOS, and I imagine that as time goes on, like by by the end of the year, the vast majority, if not all of those issues, will be resolved, because while the Steam Deck is definitely getting long in the tooth at the ripe old age of 4.5, people still use it all the time. There's a lot of people playing games on it. So like, just because it's selling less units after the price hikes, there's still a dedicated community of people out there. It's obviously going to be aided by the Steam Machine and eventually the Steam Frame, which we'll talk about later in this video. So it's just not a big deal to me. So any way you slice it, I don't think it's worth using Windows on the Steam Machine, but I guess it's cool that Valve is providing the drivers in case you want to do it. More power to you. I'll never forget when I had a micro SD card with 512 gigs that I installed Windows on, like a portable version of Windows 11 for Destiny 2. It worked pretty well. It had a lot of issues. That was a crazy time when people were just throwing anything on the Steam Deck, and I wanted to try it out. But moving on to the second news story, let's put the red bar of death situation to rest, because, why would the games journalist actually do their jobs and research this instead of taking one report from someone who was justifiably pissed off that their brand new product had a red light and wouldn't work for a few hours? No, why would they do research and see if that was the case instead of trying to make it a huge controversy that they could milk for months, if not years? Either way, it didn't turn out to be a big deal. We covered that in the last video, but Valve did provide an easy solution if you do see this. All you have to do is first unplug your Steam Machine and then let it sit for a few minutes, and then just to make sure all the juice is out of it, just tap the power button a few times, hold it for a few seconds, get all the residual juice out of it. If you've ever upgraded the SSD in your Steam Deck, this is a familiar process to you, like unplugging the battery, hitting the power button to get all the juice out. That's what you're doing. Then all you have to do is plug it back in and hold the power button for 6 seconds until you see the little indicator next to it flash. After that, you'll see the LED bar cycle through a few colors. Once it turns green, hit the power button and you'll be good to go. And finally, once you actually boot it up, the LED bar should turn blue, and it should take a little bit longer to actually boot up because it's going through some first time processes, because you reset the memory and it has to figure things out. So all things considered, not the biggest issue to fix in the world, but it shouldn't be happening regardless. I wish there was a way around this, but right now there's only 2 reports of it actually happening, so it doesn't actually seem widespread. Now there is a caveat here. If you're playing a game for like an extended period of time and you see that LED bar light up red, but you're still able to play the game, pay attention to that, because it's a warning that your Steam Machine is overheating. I haven't seen any reports of this happening to people. I saw one on Reddit that was figured out pretty quickly. I don't know what they did, but apparently it went away. I can't imagine this being a major issue unless, you're playing Black Myth Wukong absolutely maxed out at 4K at 20 frames per second, if that, or maybe even 15 FPS, or maybe even 15 FPS if we're being real. If you're in that scenario, I could see this thing overheating, but like one of the biggest selling points of the Steam Machine from the jump has been the fact that they worked really hard on the cooling and keeping it quiet, and every review I've seen has been consistently impressed with the cooling performance of this thing. So keep that in mind. If you're playing a game and you see red, you might want to just close the game and let the Steam Machine cool down, but it's not really a big enough issue where I think you really need to worry about it. And thankfully the color red is pretty damn bright on this LED bar, so it shouldn't be something that you let sit for a while if you do notice it, right? Like, you're not going to miss it unless you've got your Steam Machine in a container or face backwards, which you definitely shouldn't, because why would you put it in a container? It's a PC. That'll bust your PS5, your Series X. Of course it'll bust your Steam Machine as well. It's just not hard to see through the matrix on how this stuff gets reported on, as long as there's like one truly negative news story like the price, which was not Valve's fault. That just sets the tone for the next few months that journalists are going to kind of like latch onto. They're going to look for anything negative they can pile on top of it, because of course, if you have a negative story like the price to performance ratio, and then you kind of let that fall out of the news, and then you get another negative news story, it's not so much that you want to keep the train moving. It lets you continuously link back to that original article. So you create this little ecosystem of negativity where people are clicking around. And like, I get it. The price does suck and they should figure out a way to lower it as soon as possible. But like, everything they've said and done kind of shows that that's their key concern right now. Like the second they can lower the price, I guarantee you they will. But like worst case, a few years down the line when all of this resolves, we're going to get the Steam Machine Pro or like the Steam Machine OLED, and it's going to have two controllers attached to the side of it and a screen on the front, and it's just going to be this giant fucking Steam Deck that you lug around on your back. It'll have included backpack straps, right? Like I can see forward a few years, and I think this is probably going to be a blip in the past, and all it takes is one really good news story to kind of just knock people out of this trance that they're in where everything has to be so negative all the time. But yeah, I'll stop philosophizing now and get to the third news story, which is that the Steam Frame looks like it's launching soon. So in the whole chaos surrounding the Steam Machine's launch, I recommend checking out Deck Wizard's video because he tested a few games. Valve has been silently shipping in a bunch of VR headsets, like 14 different shipments of the Steam Frame, which is cool because it kind of like leads me to believe that they think this thing is going to sell pretty well and that they're pretty proud of it. Just like looking at the past two launches of the Steam controller and Steam Machine, when they start getting these big shipments in big batches like they recently did, it usually means this thing's probably right around the corner. Like they've also kind of slowed down on the specific updates to fix minor issues with the Steam Machine, and they also just upgraded the graphics driver for it. So like clearly the bigger stuff with that is a little bit behind them. Things are lining up in the correct way for the Steam Frame to launch soon, and I think that's pretty cool because people are really excited for it. There is a little bit of attrition right now with VR game developers who are just kind of throwing their hands up at Meta and saying, you guys kind of killed this platform. So they made flat versions of Moss and Arizona Sunshine, but I wouldn't say it's like bad enough yet where it's just completely abandoned. Like they're still supporting the VR version. So I genuinely hope that the Steam Frame is exciting at a decent price and does sell extremely well and just kind of like kickstarts the VR game development scene back into gear. But of course, the only thing that's going to make that happen is if not only people buy the hardware, but they also show up to buy the games. But I'm excited about it for a few reasons. First of all, VR is just genuinely cool on its own. Second, SteamOS for ARM. I'm excited to hopefully put that on my AYN Thor soon because I'm going to be real, that thing was a bad purchase and it's just collecting dust. It's really cool. I just like the Steam Deck and I have enough PCs where I just don't have time to really play old DS games I played back when they came out. And finally, I'm just excited to see all the changes and stuff for SteamOS. Like the actual environment, or one of them, the Aurora one, leaked because a game developer showed their game running on the Steam Frame dev unit they had. It just looks really damn cool. And I'm just curious how people are going to react to the price on this thing because it's probably going to be expensive just because of the sheer component cost. But it looks like Meta's new headset's going to be like $1,600 or more. So it seems like all the VR headset manufacturers are just done subsidizing the hardware. So it's kind of like settling where it probably should have been from the beginning. But yeah, it's all on Valve now to finally announce the release date and price for this thing. I'm imagining there will be a reservation system just like with the Steam Machine, which I know is making people upset because it's totally random. I'm sure it'll be a lottery as well, but I think I'm going to pick one of these up. It really I feel like everyone else, it really depends on the price for me because I have the MetaQuest 3. I barely use it. And while the Steam Machine and Steam Deck are two devices I know I'll actually use for more than the first weekend, I just need to be shown the Steam Frame, see some actual demand for it, see developers kind of making games for it, and then I'm absolutely on board. Gonna be real, a native port of Half-Life Alyx is all it's gonna take. Like if I can just play through that game standalone on this headset, it's gonna be really hard to resist picking it up. But yeah, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. I took 2 weeks off from the gym because I had a solid week of just shitty workout after shitty workout. It was really frustrating me. I was reading about it and it said if that's happening, it means your body's telling you it needs a break. That was true. I went back to the gym today, hit a PR on chest, and just had the best chest workout I've had in over a year. So if you're in the gym consistently and you're in that rut where you're either plateaued super hard or just having shitty workout after shitty workout, take a couple weeks off. I stepped on the scale before. I was 200 pounds. I stepped on the scale after that 2 weeks. I'm 198. So I didn't even balloon and just undo all my progress, which if you don't work out a lot, that's what everyone's scared of. That's why they don't take breaks. They're like, oh man, the last 3 years of progress are going to be erased by just 2 weeks of skipping workouts. I know it doesn't make sense. That's just how your brain works. But yeah, that's all I've got for you in this one. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.